I call the Shadow Minister, Andrew Bowie.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to thank all of the speakers and contributions to this afternoon's debate. Especially like to thank and welcome the contributions from the Right Honourable Members and Honourable Members for Gainsborough, Herne Bay and Sandwich, South Holland and the Deepings, Harrow East, Isle of Wight East, Gordon and Buchan in the Weald of Kent, Folkestone and Hythe. He's not in his place just yet, but he mentioned the Dungeness nuclear power plant, and I agree with him. The potential at that plant is huge for new nuclear, especially small modular reactors, and I can very much recommend the fish and chips, or fission chips, that they sell at the Pilot pub just outside the gates of that power plant, if anybody is looking to visit. I'd also like to pay tribute and welcome the comments from the member for Honiton and Sidmouth, who seem to suggest that we are all here because of a lack of positive votes for any of us individually. I'm not quite sure how that will go down at the next Parliamentary Liberal Democrat Party meeting, given that's what he thinks of his colleagues, but it was a very enjoyable contribution nonetheless. Madam Deputy Speaker, across this House, we all recognise the turbulent world we live in and that our energy security is being tested at every turn. Russia seeks to exploit vulnerabilities in our subsea infrastructure, Iran is weaponising the supply of oil and gas from the Gulf, and China seeking to access our critical national infrastructure. So it was incredibly welcome to see that a bill will be introduced to strengthen the United Kingdom's energy security, an energy independence bill. Finally, we thought, they get it. Finally, they've listened to the academics, the trade unions, Renewable Scotland, Tony Blair, Jurgen Meyer. Finally, we're going to see the government take the action necessary to secure our energy future, secure jobs and deliver much needed revenue to His Majesty's Treasury. Or so we thought. Because sadly and predictably, they haven't listened. They haven't acted. In fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, they are doubling down on making this country poorer, doubling down on making this country weaker, and doubling down on callously abandoning the high-skilled workers and people of Aberdeen and the north east of Scotland. I'd be delighted to give way.
Very grateful. I would never accuse my constituency neighbour of being a rank rotten revisionist, Madam Deputy Speaker, but the problem is, when he was in government, for the last 10 years of his government, oil and gas jobs in the north east of Scotland went down by 100,000. And just in the 2 years that he was a minister, including a minister in the Department for Energy, they went down a further 10%. Why is he now manifesting as some sort of caped crusader for oil and gas workers? Because it's difficult for many of us in the north east of Scotland to believe.
Representing a party that for the best part of 10 years had a presumption against oil and gas and now seems to be a champion for that industry. I'd also like to point out that there was a global oil price crash in 2014, and what did we do? We implemented a policy of maximum economic recovery. We cut taxes and we stemmed job losses, the exact opposite of what this Labour government is doing in the North Sea, who are accelerating the decline and seeing thousands of people being made independent. It's frankly offensive, Madam Deputy Speaker, to call the bill that is being introduced an energy independence bill. Madam Deputy Speaker, it is an energy dependence bill, more dependent on foreign imports, more dependent on China, more dependent on Norway for gas, who are drilling it from the very same sea that this government is banning Britain from exploiting. It is insanity. Once again, the Secretary of State has put his ideological fantasies before doing what is right for the people of this country. The only people who will be cheering this on are those in Moscow, Tehran and Beijing, who, to be fair, will probably themselves be incredulous, unbelieving of their luck that they have such useful idiots in the form of this Labour government, cheered on by the SNP with their decade-long presumption against oil and gas, and the Liberal Democrats who have a different position depending on which part of the country you happen to be in at the time. All choosing to make the UK poorer, colder and more vulnerable to outside influence. Let's be absolutely clear, the position of this Labour government on oil and gas is downright dangerous. By now proposing to legislate a ban on all new licences, this government might as well be hanging a closed for business sign over the North Sea. Madam Deputy Speaker, I, and not just me, do not understand the logic of these actions. The Secretary of State, his ministers, the current occupant of number 10, repeatedly tell us that oil and gas will have a role in the UK for years to come. they are right. Roughly 85% of the homes in the UK rely on gas for heating. Over 90% of vehicles in the UK rely today on fossil fuels to run. So it's not going to end overnight. But all this legislation will achieve is that we'll become increasingly reliant on shipments from abroad at higher cost, with higher emissions and fewer jobs here in Britain. Madam Deputy Speaker, I and colleagues like the Leader of the Opposition, the Secretary of State for Energy and others have come to this House time and time again to highlight the damage this government's approach is having to communities in and around Aberdeen and the north east of Scotland. I'm always delighted to give way to my right honourable friend.
The Secretary of State claims he's leading a moral crusade, but we know he's simply exporting emissions. It's like saying, Lord, I will not sin, but I'm quite happy for people to sin on my behalf.
The right honourable gentleman is absolutely right. We are exporting emissions, we're exporting jobs, and it's having a detrimental impact on our economy and communities up and down the length of this United Kingdom, not least in the north east of Scotland. I see it every time I go home. 1,000 jobs are going to be lost every month under this Labour government. £50 billion of investment lost under this Labour government. Pubs, restaurants, shops closing up in the Granite City under this Labour government. The impact is being felt across the country, this is true, but it is in Aberdeen and the north east of Scotland that the pain is most acute. I'm always delighted to give way.
Thank the Shadow Minister for giving way. And I wonder if he could help me. I don't understand why the Labour government think there's a need to ban new licences, because they keep telling us that there's nothing left in the North Sea. If they think there's nothing left there, why are we banning ourselves from looking for anything that might not be there anyway?
It's better than I ever could. She is absolutely right. It is completely nonsensical. In Aberdeen, there will be a referendum on this government's approach to the North Sea in just a few short weeks. On the 18th of June, the people of what was until recently the oil capital of Europe will have their say on how they view this government, how they feel this government has treated them and the industry of which they are so proud. But it's not just the production of oil and gas that's being driven into extinction by this government's policies, nor is it just Aberdeen that's being affected by this government's anti-growth, anti-business policies. Lindsay, Mossmoran, Grangemouth, Denbigh, Pembrokeshire, glassworks, cement works, potteries, refineries, chemical plants. Heavy industry is being crushed by the cost of energy. Yet rather than trying to prevent this Labour government is only interested in accelerating its decline. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government's headlong rush to renewables may be well-intentioned, but it's utterly bereft of common sense. This Labour government is rushing towards a power system that depends on the weather rather than on firm, reliable baseloads, exposing us to blackouts just as they saw in the Iberian Peninsula last year. Avoiding such blackouts and providing that energy baseload is exactly why the rollout of new nuclear is an absolute priority. Now, I am pleased that there is consensus on this, and the government recognises the important role that nuclear has in our future energy mix. That being said, and as I have said before in this House, Madam Deputy Speaker, sadly this government's ambition for nuclear pales in comparison to that of ours when we were in government. Their failure to commit to a 3rd gigawatt-scale reactor in Anglesey is a huge disappointment, not just for us on this side of the House, but for industry and the people on Innismon too. The rollout of small modular reactors is good, yes, but it curtails the possibility of gigawatt-scale at Innismon. A cynic might suggest, Madam Deputy Speaker, the decision was made to rush out this announcement in some desperate and hasty attempt to salvage the Welsh Labour Party. Well, it's safe to say that that failed. But back to ambition. Decommissioning the UK stockpile of plutonium, the selection of only one small modular technology, the refusal to follow our ambition of 24 gigawatts of new nuclear is just not good enough. Yes, I will give way.
About his party's ambition for new nuclear in this country, can he remind the House how many new nuclear plants his party opened during the course of their tenure in charge?
I could run through the list as the Minister has heard me do on multiple times of what we did achieve in office when it comes to nuclear. I would like to remind him that the Labour Party have never opened one nuclear power plant in all the years that they have been in office, a record they're probably going to continue over the next 3 years. Madam Deputy Speaker, this act of national self-harm has to come to an end. There is only one party that has a plan to cut bills, support industry, protect jobs and make Britain energy secure. Energy costs are stalling growth. No, I won't. Deindustrialising the country and weighing down on family and businesses. That's why Britain needs a serious plan to cut bills. And with the Conservatives' cheap power plan, that is exactly what Britain would get. A £200 cut to energy bills. This could be delivered right now, Mr Speaker, if this government prioritised the people of this country rather than wacky, unrealistic ideology. But we would not stop there, Madam Deputy Speaker. We would go much further and much faster. To make this country energy secure, to protect British jobs, to grow tax revenue and welcome billions of pounds of investment, we would tell the world that the North Sea is open for business. Our Get Britain drilling bill would end Labour's ban on new licences to unlock the gargantuan supply of opportunity that lies beneath our seas. I will not. We would back our world-class oil and gas industry by scrapping the ban on exporting technologies and welcome the £5 billion worth of exports that would create. I'm sorry, I will not. The North Sea Transition Authority would be rechristened the North Sea Authority and tasked with one noble mission: to maximise North Sea oil and gas drilling and raise billions more in tax cuts for the British people. And of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, we Conservatives would scrap the energy profits levy, the anvil around the neck of the industry that Labour extended and increased as one of their first acts in government, because a profitable, attractive, investable North Sea would strengthen public services, strengthen our energy security and grow our economy, making Britain a stronger country. And if members agree with that, if honourable members agree with us that a brighter, more secure, more prosperous future is possible if you fight for it, then I would urge honourable members to vote for our amendment tonight.